Dr. Subhasis, please.
Thank you, sir. Before coming to the success story of IVL, let me share the success story that we had today from the live case at AMRI Salt Lake. Due to paucity of time, we could not show you the last result for the heavily calcified lesion, in which we used a 1.5 RotaPro and did a mini crush of LED-D1 and a left main to LED IVUS. And this was the final result that we achieved. Okay. So we couldn't show this during the live case transmission. Coming to IVL, I'm sure all of you have your experiences of using this lithotripsy calcium cutting machine, and all of you have got some stories to share. And I'll be sharing some success and not so success stories. So the first one is a 47-year-old male of stable ischemic heart disease with 80% calcified lesion. If you look at the arrows there, you will notice that you will see the tram track calcification even before the dye comes in, an indication of heavy calcification. And so we planned angioplasty with IVL, did a predilation with 2.5 and 3, and then did an OCT. I'll see where the OCT runs, but if you see this still images to your right, you'll appreciate the 360-degree calcium arc in the tightest portion of the vessel. So this is what we were dealing with. What we did was we put our IVL balloon down there, IVL 3, with 40 pulses. We had to deal with LED and LCX. Remember that IVL is a ration device, so we have to ration our pulse as well. So we spent 40 pulses for the LED. So that's the IVL balloon. And after that, brush it off with did it go? Okay. Right. So that's the post-IVLized OCT, and we will love to see those cracks there. Once we see those cracks, we should be very happy. These are the typical cracks with an IVL that we get, which indicates that now if we do our NC balloon, these tectonic plates of calcium are going to shift away, creating more areas. So we finish it off with the 3 and 3.5 NC post-dilation, overlapping 3 and 3.5 stents, and then a post-dilation with 3.5 and 4, and optimized with the post-dilation. These are the OCT results, a bit cloudy due to dye there, but due to blood there, but we can see that they are well opposed and well expanded stents that we have, which were possible with the use of the IVL. Now, one of the beauties of IVL that we keep hearing is that there's no learning curve when compared to a RotaPro or a orbital atherectomy. Or believe me, I do not agree to that. Having had experiences of quite a few IVL now, I do believe that we need to know our device well, and that's the learning curve, or what the device does and how do we use it. We all know that there are emitters there. This picture shows 3, but the coronary balloon has 2. So the expands and collapse vapor bubble, which creates a short burst of sonic pressure waves, and that pressure wave travels along the calcium lines, and this is effectively a 50 atmosphere pressure. So there is a localized field effect which occurs. What that means is that this pressure wave is hard on hard. So if it's a calcium, it's hitting it hard. But if there's a soft, so if you're holding the balloon like there, it will not cause any injury even to your arms. So this is a very important concept. So these are the first pictures of the IVL used, which had caused those calcium cracks. But what we should remember is that we are trying to hit with a hammer. If we are hitting a hammer on a glass shield, that glass shield will break. But if we are hitting it on a pillow, that pillow will just crush in. So when we are hitting the calcium, it breaks. But when we are hitting a soft plug, it doesn't break. The importance of this is to understand is that if we are taking an IVL balloon, which is too small, that will not crack the calcium. It's only when we are able to squeeze that soft plug out and touch that calcium properly that we will be able to break that calcium. So that's the most important thing to remember when you're using IVL, that it should be properly sized so that it's not too small and away from the calcium plate. It's important to understand the device also. The device is 12mm long balloon, but there are 2 emitters. One is 4mm away from the distal tip. Why is it 4mm away? So that the pushability, the trackability is better of the balloon. The other one is 6mm away, 2mm from the proximal tip. So these 2 emitters that they are placed 180 degree along each other. So if it's north, the other one is south. If it's east, the other one is west. You never know which one is facing which way when you're putting it into your coronaries. So it's best that you turn it a bit in between your pulses. Maybe pull it a bit 2mm at a time, so that you are able to deliver the pulse exactly where you want at the tightest portion of the calcium. So emitter placement is again a very important thing to learn. Also remember that with the balloon, what we're trying to do is inflation and not a dilation. So don't go away to very high pressures, more than 4. Nothing is going to happen with the 6, 8, 10. We are not trying to dilate the lesion. This perhaps is the most important thing. All that we have now with 80 pulses, it's not 120, it's still to come. So we should know how to use our pulses. When we see a short lesion, that's easy. We know we can spend it there. But if we see a long lesion, then perhaps we need to spend the maximum pulses in the tightest portion and the other pulses there. But all that we have is 80 pulses. It's a rationed device. What we are trying to do, we are not trying to break. We are trying to crack. Breaking is what we are going to do with the NC after the IVL. So if we have a result like this, don't be disheartened. Even with a result like this with an IVL, remember that once you use your NC at high pressures, you can get a proper break and a parallel lines on the on that balloon. So even if you, in fact, even if you don't see a fracture on an OCT, post-IVL OCT, don't be disheartened, because this is from the Disrupt CAT3 trial, which shows that with and without a fracture visible on OCT, the stent expansion and the ADS stenosis are similar. And why is that so? This is a very interesting paper by Dr. Ziad Ali, which shows that even with post-IVL, where OCT did not show cracks, micro-CT does. That's mainly because we are speaking of non-linear cracks in this IVL, and OCT, remember, is a light-based technique which always goes in and out, so it's taking images in a linear fashion. So if you don't see cracks, don't be disheartened, your IVL has done the job. Also, even in a concentric and in an eccentric, it has similar results. So we can freely use it in a concentric and in an eccentric lesion. Also remember that people will say that it's very difficult to track a IVL balloon. Yes, it's bulky, especially once we have gone up to 4 atmospheres 1, but that should be dealt with a guideliner. Be liberal with the use of guideliners to deliver a balloon at the site where you want your emitter to emit. With that, let me show you the second case, which is a 69-year-old male present with an NSTEMI, where the D1 was the culprit. We opened that up, didn't think the stent would be sized enough, but look at the treacherous LED there, heavily calcified just after that diagonal, and we left it for another day. We took him for IVL-based angioplasty, and what did we do? Right. So these are other shots. I put these shots here so you can appreciate the calcium also at the proximal part, not at the tightest portion, but also the proximal part. Yes, there is a little bit of calcium at the proximal part. So on the day of the plasty, we did a predilation with 2 and 3s because the IVs were not passing, and this is the IVS shots. I've snapped it for you. So here is the portion where the vessel size is 3. Look at this image. Look at this image where we see the tightest portion of 180 degree of calcium. This is the diagonal part, again 180 degree of calcium, but to our amazement, here we had a 360 degree of calcium. So this was the part here which we thought didn't, where we would place a stent, the proximal edge of the stent. And proximal to that, we had, it showed a non-calcified ectatic segment, 4.5, almost a 4.5. Why I'm showing you this is because once we saw this IVS image, we were in dilemma. What will be the IVL size? Should we take it 3? Should we take it 3.5? We didn't have the luxury of 2 IVLs. They are very costly. And how to ration the pulses? I mean, we had to break this. We had to now 360 degree of calcium this. So I think this can be debated later. But what we did at that point of time, we used IVL3. Remember, we had only one IVL to use. We used 1 pulse here, 2 pulses in the tightest portion, 3 pulses there. So that's 6 pulses gone. And then we thought we'll push it down to again deal with this portion. And it did not cross. Luckily, we put in a Wolverine 3 at 12 atmospheres, tried the IVL again, did not cross. Took an OPN NC, went up to very high pressures of 40. And if you look at the images, the OPN was opening well enough. So we were happy, but the IVL did not cross. What do we do with the remaining 2 pulses? Okay, we jutted it in as much as we could and then exhausted our 2 pulses and repeated the Wolverine. Again, the Wolverine was opening well. So this is the image after the predilation. I'm not sure whether it'll run or not. Okay, that one didn't run. So we put in a stent, 3.548, and post-dilated it with 3.5 and 4. These are the last results. So we are not very happy with what we saw here. Maybe they should have expanded more, but this is what we had. What we learned on that day is that certainly we should have given the maximum pulses at the tightest site and not been confused with the 3.5 site. Number 1. Number 2, we should have used a guide extension to push that inflated balloon once again down there. So yeah, so that's my take-home message. Is that IVL is effective. We all know much more important the IVL is safe. There is a very little literature about perforations with IVL, and that usually happens with sizing problems. I want you to know your device well, about the position of the emitters, how they emit, how you can pull or push it. Remember, it's a ration device. I would love to have a 120 pulse, but for the moment we have only 80, and we should always be liberally using our IVLs with other calcium cutting tools. Thank you.